All right, hello there, Human Geo kids. Let's go ahead and finish up all the urban lessons today. So here we go. We're gonna take urban all the way to the end. So I don't know if this next series of slides you got to really write it down. I just want to talk it out. So what are some problems with cities and growing cities? Let's check it out. If I could only click ahead. There we go. Overpopulation. Yep. If there's too many people, it can cause shortages of water, electricity, sanitation, housing, infrastructure can be pushed to the limit, traffic can suck. And that's usually a pretty big problem with most cities. It's you want to find that sweet spot of just having the right amount of people live there so that everything can kind of operate as smoothly as possible. But especially in the developing world, this is becoming more and more of a challenge. All right, and traffic, I just referenced in the last one. Cities can outgrow infrastructure really fast, leading to traffic problems. That's why so many of the new urban concepts say no cars or as few cars as possible, because putting cars in cities just makes for way more problems and way more pollution. So limit the cars, walk around, bike around, get on the subway. Seems to be a much better way to interact in a city. Air pollution. Oh my goodness. Look at this picture showing you two versions of Shanghai. But yeah, so high power transportation releases pollution particles into the air. People can't breathe it, especially in China today. Oh my goodness, just the worst. And look at how much it ruins your visibility too. Wow, you can't even see anything going on back there. So air pollution, another big problem with cities. Okay, an air quality index, this kind of just goes off of that. So we do actually have an air quality index, and it's fun to look this up online. Usually I do this in class with students, and pretty constantly the air quality in China is just so bad. Also parts of India is so bad. And the United States, generally pretty good. And I know that one of the big reasons why we advocated moving factories out of the United States was to improve our air quality, and congratulations, we have. But the air quality is just now way, way worse in Asia. Okay, light pollution. This one is a big deal here in Las Vegas. Excessive light causes some animals who usually are nocturnal to have some problems. Also, you can't see the stars. You can't really see the sky. Some people have problems sleeping. I generally don't. Got those blackout curtains, yo. That's the solution. But yeah, light pollution is always going to be a problem from cities for sure. Noise pollution. Yeah, I remember when I was living in South Korea, sometimes I just couldn't go to sleep because it would just be too loud outside. I would sometimes get waken up in the morning and stuff. So noise levels, some people just aren't a fan of this. Some people want their peace and quiet. But cities, they're always going to be loud and noisy. Okay, and then slums. This is a big problem, especially in the third world. But so many people are moving to cities as much or as recent as possible that they have nowhere to live. And they got to put housing together in any way they can. So these are the favelas outside of Rio de Janeiro. And these are unplanned, improvised living conditions. Typically, these houses are not very good for keeping people safe and sanitary. So something should be done to help these people out. Let's build them some good quality homes. Okay, and then unemployment. Yeah, all these people come to cities expecting to find jobs. For the most part, they do find jobs. What about the people who don't? So if there's not enough jobs for people, some people are going to be broke. If people are unemployed, they're going to get into trouble. They're going to start rioting and stuff like that. So we gotta make sure everybody has a job. All right, and then stress, and this is especially true, I know, in South Korea. They have this concept called pali pali, which is just the fast-paced city life, increased competition, and like everybody's trying to get the best deal, everybody's trying to make a buck, and it's going to be stress and kind of the rat race of life. Thankfully, teaching, I don't feel this too much. All right, and then crime. There's always going to be more crime in cities than there are in rural areas, usually because in cities, because there's millions of people, you can kind of like hide into the crowd, and it's tough to like find people. If you do a crime in a city of like 30 people, they're just going to talk to everybody and be like, who stole my watch? And they'll figure it out. But crime is always going to be a bigger concern in cities. Thankfully, crime is falling in the United States, which is pretty great. All right, so let's look at some solutions here. So limit the size of cities, set boundaries, control the size, and then always build up instead of building out. And that's something we continually talk about. Zoning, yep, put put a stop to using agricultural lands for non-agricultural purposes, because more and more our cities are taking over land that's supposed to be for agriculture, and if we didn't keep taking over that land, then we could have more land for our animal friends. So there you go. All right, rural development. So developing recreation, education, healthcare, make rural life more comfortable. That's an idea, but I mean that's sort of two ways of thinking about it, because I think most of the literature about what's the best thing to do in the future is we should have everybody live in cities, but just make sure we have a lot more shared spaces and open public spaces usable for all. Don't everybody have these like private backyards and stuff like that. Okay, and rural infrastructure development. Well, yeah, we could help infrastructure in rural areas, give them more water, roads, electricity, but this is just another solution to urban problems. I think cities are the future, though. And help rural businesses. Yep, look at this. Lionsdale, population 2,000, tax-free. Hey. So if you build a new business in Lionsdale, you won't get taxed. That's kind of cool. And that could maybe be a way to put pressure off of cities, but overall, long term, I think the future of humanity is everyone's going to live in a major city eventually, or maybe not everyone, but 99% of the population. Okay. All right. The next slides are just a whole bunch of one-off vocabulary words with a whole bunch of pictures. Let's check these out. Intra-city transportation methods. So these are ways that mass groups of people get around a city. So whatever you can do to get from one part of the city to the other, that's intra-city. Inter-city is going from your city to another city entirely. So I'm going to show you these pictures, and let's think intra-city or inter-city. Intra, within the city. Inter, going to other cities themselves. So this is a subway. This is definitely intra-city transportation. You're getting around the cityscape itself. You're probably not going to another city on a subway. All right, these are international airplanes. You're going inter-city with these airplanes. Probably it would be pretty silly to get in an airplane to fly to another part of the city. It's just not the appropriate form of transportation. All right, this is a little boat, and this looks like this doesn't look like a long-distance boat, so I think this is like the city of Venice, and the city of Venice is on a bunch of little islands, so this has got to be intra-city. I would not want to be on that boat and travel for more than like 2 hours. That doesn't look safe. All right, this is a local city bus. And buses can be kind of tricky because buses could be intra or inter. But I think this is an intra-city bus. You're just going along the city streets, and it's probably going in a big loop. But if you saw like a Greyhound bus, which said like destination San Francisco, like then that would be inter-city. All right, these are bicycles. These got to be intra-city. Good luck inter-city bicycling. This is a bullet train. This is definitely inter-city. You're going, at 300 miles an hour to go to another city. Bullet trains are pretty great, kids. I highly recommend you travel on one at some point in your life. Try it out yourself. All right, horses, got to be intra-city. Running, intra-city. Segways. I've ridden a Segway before and I crashed it. It's not one of my more proud moments. But Segways are definitely intra-city. Walking intra-city. This is something that they're actually building between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. They want to have these capsule pods and shoot people in a giant gun that'll like shoot them through this tube and get them really, really fast from one city to another. This obviously isn't done yet. This is still in kind of the planning phases, but this would absolutely be inter-city travel, and I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I want to lie in a giant bullet and fly through a big tube. That'd be a little scary to me, I think. And then these are rickshaws. These are really common in Southeast Asia. These are intra-city. I would feel so bad if one of these guys had to do inter-city transportation on a rickshaw. Oh man. And then this is like a ski lift, but they're using it to get people up a steep hill. So this would be intra-city transportation. I saw one of these in Switzerland one time. This is some kind of Norgentown personal transit. So this is intra-city for sure. This is an intra-city bus as well. Actually, this might even be a trolley because it's connected to electrical cables. A gondola, also in Venice, intra-city transportation. Okay, so urban planners today are really trying to use strategies called transit oriented development. Anything they can do to get people to get around the city that doesn't involve personal cars. Gosh, I feel like that's such a point I keep hitting in all these lectures. It's like, don't use cars anymore. People should get around the city in any way that isn't private transportation. They just really want to emphasize public transportation. So that would be buses or subways or trolleys. Emphasize bicycling, emphasize walking. They want people to get around the city that way instead. Because look, if we got rid of all of our roads for cars, we could really use that space way more efficiently and effectively to move people around town. And which form is the best? I mean, everyone's going to have their own opinion. I'm a big fan of bicycling. I was a big bicycle guy in South Korea and in Santa Barbara. But here's the question. Does Las Vegas have any hope? Could Las Vegas ever reinvent itself as a city not reliant on personal vehicles? And I think the short answer is I just don't know. I think Las Vegas is too spread out. And also, like, the weather here, especially in summertime, good. Like, nobody wants to be hanging out outside, walking around, or bicycling around during summertime. It's just too dang hot. So maybe our city is just kind of doomed for the life of vehicles. And I think there's plenty of cities in the United States that could redesign themselves quite a bit to better service transit-oriented development. But so many American cities weren't designed this way. We were designed with cars, and it would really take a major, major effort for Americans to give up their cars. So here's the city of San Francisco, and San Francisco has put a lot of effort into putting bicycling and walking throughout the city, which is really, really impressive because San Francisco is a city with all these big, giant, steep hills. And I wouldn't even want to try to bicycle up one of San Francisco's hills. That just sounds scary to me. And then here's more of this idea, more and more people walking around. And then, yep, you got these public buses that are maybe even trolleys going around places. And then, yep, different ways of connecting people. Cycle, walk, transit, compact everything together. And here's the city. I think this is Los Angeles, I think. But yeah, I mean, it would be so hard to really get a walking, bicycling vibe going in this city. It's just too spread out, you know. Like the most someone could probably bicycle is 10 miles before they would get exhausted, I would think. And then, yep, everybody's walking in Japan. They really organize their cities that way. Okay, now let's talk about environmental justice. So this is a social movement that's really trying to say, hey, cities cause pollution, we get it, but why does the pollution always end up in the minority parts of town? And it's sad but true that very many American cities tend to do that. They're like, oh, we've got wastewater flowing into the river. We could either put the wastewater going in the kind of wealthier part of town or the lower income part of town. They're always going to put it in the lower income part of town. So there's definitely some racial concerns with how pollution is spread throughout a city. A good example of this is the Inglewood oil fields in Los Angeles. And, you know, like that's Inglewood is a typical African American lower income neighborhood. And yet there's all this oil being pumped out of the ground all around them. So, yeah. And it's also true in Las Vegas. I mean, the wastewater part of our city is in the east part of town, which is also one of the lower income parts of town. The city dump is in the north part of town, so there's a lot of concerns there, even in our own town. So, yep, presence of dangerous toxins in minority neighborhoods gave rise to environmental justice. Minority communities are fed up with it. They call it environmental racism. Groups began questioning all these hazardous waste materials, and it's connected with civil rights. Okay, and then here's Los Angeles, and this is kind of the rich, more white part of town over here, and then here's kind of the more minority parts of town, which also are the more polluted parts of town, which totally follows this theme. Okay, and then what do you got? Twin Cities environmental justice. Yep, pollution emissions tend to be in the areas where there are people of color. And what do you got here? This is, which city is this? Alameda. Okay, this is like Oakland. So the more polluted parts of Oakland tend to be the more minority parts of town. And yeah, I think that's wow. Oakland is really racially divided, huh? Wow, more than I expected. All right, moving on. Environmental justice. Yeah, do it. Reclaim the community. All right, rethink cities. Okay, an exurb, it's like a suburb, but it's very far removed from the CBD, the Central Business District. So an exurb is at least an hour drive away. Typically have higher income areas beyond traditional suburbs. Typically tend to be where the more rich and wealthy people live. And the great example of this is Malibu in relationship to Los Angeles. It's Long Island in relationship to New York. I could even argue it's Lake Las Vegas when compared to Las Vegas. If any of you have ever been to Lake Las Vegas, there's some really nice houses out there. Del Mar to San Diego. I don't know if any of you are familiar with San Diego. But yeah, Long Island, New York City. Those are all the ones I know of for sure. But I think you could even argue Boulder to Denver. That would be another one. But it's these kind of mini cities that are pretty far away, but really, really rich people tend to live there and they commute into the major cities whenever they need to. So super far away suburbs for the rich and famous. All right, let's check them out. So this is where Lake Las Vegas is, way over here, far away from the Strip. I don't even know if it's an hour drive away. It's maybe 30, 40 minutes drive away, but it's a fancy part of town. Okay, and here's what Lake Las Vegas looks like. Ooh, look, they've got a lake and a golf course. Fancy. And then here's Malibu. So, downtown Los Angeles is way over here. Malibu's way to the west of it. But yeah, Malibu, this is where you'll find a whole lot of like movie stars and directors and stuff. So yeah, you got the fancy houses in Malibu. So here's some of those Malibu houses. Always epic parties. Oh my gosh, live in Malibu, kids. That's the dream. And then Del Mar, it's super north of San Diego, but I've been to some parts of Del Mar, always really fancy. So yeah, here's some of these Del Mar houses overlooking the beach. And then Long Island, New York is way over here, so Long Island's far east of it. But a lot of fancy houses in Long Island. Look at one of these houses. Oh my gosh, live there, you've made it. Okay, a boomburg is a suburb that's growing really fast. So fast, they're dramatically altering the landscape, becoming new mini urban areas on the edge of major cities. So, for example, Summerlin, Henderson, Mountain's Edge, Centennial Hills to Las Vegas. These are boomburgs. Whole lot of building happening here. Suburb cities to Dallas. I don't even know what they're all called. Houston, Austin, Phoenix, cities in NorCal. These are all cities that are growing really, really fast and making a whole lot of new income and content for these bigger cities. So let's check them out. All right, so yeah, look at how much Las Vegas is growing. Wow, it's a big growing city. It's a boomburg. And then here's these houses getting built up really, really fast. And I'm seeing this a lot here in Southern Highlands and Centennial Hills. Or in Mountain's Edge. Well, and Mountain's Edge and Centennial Hills. But yeah, this is a map of Las Vegas in general. And you see that as the years have gone on, Las Vegas is just growing, getting bigger all the time. All right, and then big city bonanza. So job growth in the largest Texas metropolitan areas. So Austin's growing a lot, McAllen's growing a lot. Yeah, Texas, super big growing place. All right, Seattle ranks number 2 for growth in 2018. So yep, Seattle's growing a lot. Florida's growing a lot. Texas is growing a lot, but Midwest cities, not so much. Baltimore, ooh, not growing at all. Going down. And what do you got here? Fastest growing suburbs. Number 1, Apex, North Carolina. I have no idea what's going on in North Carolina that's causing their suburbs to grow so much. But then a lot of places in Florida are growing, Texas are growing. So growing cities, that's where they're at. All right, bid rent theory. So this is a geographical economic theory. It talks about how land is more expensive as you get closer to the city center. And also land becomes cheaper as you get to this... more expensive near the city center. Also, the land becomes cheaper as you get further away from the central business district. So think about Manhattan, London, most major cities. If you're really close to downtown, things tend to be really expensive. If you're really far from the downtown area, things are pretty cheap. And I looked up Las Vegas statistics. These are pretty telling. So in Pahrump, which is way far away from Las Vegas. Land is $30,000 an acre. Here in our part of town in Mountain's Edge, it's $100,000 an acre. But right on the Las Vegas Strip, it's $30 million an acre. So it tells you that you get closer to a downtown, things are way more expensive. And it just kind of makes sense because everybody wants to be downtown. That's where the business action is. That's where things can happen. And if you built a casino or a resort all the way in Pahrump, no one would go there. It's just too far away. But if you build a casino on the Vegas Strip, you're like guaranteed to get a whole lot of people to check it out. So let's see some examples of this. All right, so this is bid rent in San Francisco. And you see if you're way over here on the Pacific Coast, these places going for $2,400. But if you're in downtown San Francisco, it's like $3,000 or more. But overall, all of San Francisco is pretty darn expensive, actually. Let's look at these ones here. So New York City, in the different boroughs of New York, Staten Island, a studio is only $838. That's a steal. A studio in Manhattan would cost you 3 times as much. The Bronx doesn't even have studios. So that's really telling. Staten Island, wow, way cheaper than I expected in New York City. All right, and then what is this? Bid rent in Moscow. So yeah, the closer you get to Moscow city center, the more expensive everything's going to be. And then bid rent in London, same way. The closer you get to London city center, everything's way more expensive. And then Paris, yep, every city's going to be like this. The land near the city center, super duper expensive. Tokyo, oh my gosh, unbelievably expensive. What is that? I don't even know what the cost is related to, but it's so expensive, it's insane. And then 4.34 acres of land, asking price $900,000. And this is in North Vegas? What? No, I don't want to buy that. That's not worth it. Pass. And then what is this? 10 acres for sale. The Gamble District in Monticello, Nevada. I don't even know where Monticello, Nevada is. But this is 10 acres for $25,000 negotiable. So they'll probably even accept less. So what do you want, kids? You want 4.3 acres in North Vegas for almost $1 million, or you want 10 acres in Monticello, Nevada for maybe less than $25,000. So this is all about bid rent. You know, where's the land going to be most important to you? Okay, walkability. This is a concept I've talked about a whole lot, but how friendly is an area to walking? Compare New York City to Las Vegas. New York City, way more walkable. Compare Los Angeles to Portland. Portland's way more walkable. Tokyo versus Dallas. Tokyo is way more walkable. America just sucks, generally, at having walkable cities. European and Asian cities, way, way, way better. Way more applicable to human movement. So, yep, look at how walkable that place is. Oh, it's so great. Man, walkable cities. People can walk around, check the city out, go everywhere. Central Park. Oh, it's so walkable. And then, these European cities, like, cars aren't really a big deal. Everybody's walking everywhere. Here's all these people walking in the Shibuya crossing in Tokyo. And then, there's even more people walking to the Shibuya crossing in Tokyo. Oh, my goodness. And then here's America. Everybody's just in their cars, stuck in these big, giant roads. Super boring, trapped in traffic. It sucks. Here they are, people stuck on the freeways in the holiday. I've been there and I hate it. Oh gosh, we need to change. We need to change this country. Okay, meta cities. These are cities with 20 or million more people. Today it is only Tokyo. Only Tokyo is the only meta city in the world. But in the next 20 years or so, there's going to be a whole lot of cities joining the team. Mumbai, Shanghai, Jakarta, Beijing, Karachi, Sao Paulo, Mexico City, and Lagos. They'll all probably get there by the time we get to 2040. So mega cities are the way of the future. All right. Yep, Tokyo, the mega city of the world. And then, look at all these people having a fun time in Tokyo. Man, God, I gotta go back. And then, yep, people hanging out in Tokyo. And then growth of cities. So all the blue dots are the biggest cities in the world. And then here's the most populous cities in the world. Yep, I think I already mentioned most of these. And then in Africa, every city in Africa is going to grow in a big way in the next few years. Especially what the city of Abuja. Oh my gosh, that city's gonna like quadruple in size. That's crazy. And then southern cities growing quickly. All these Texas cities are growing, growing, growing constantly. Everybody's moving to Texas, so that's where these places are all happening. All right, let's talk about some pictures, and then we're done. So let's look at this. Look at the urban planning done here in this aerial photo. These houses look very nice, spread out, very organized. And then this is some kind of slum where the houses are all on top of each other and the roads generally don't make sense. So this should be the way of the future. Plan it all out. And what do we got here? Same thing. You got these nice, awesome planned cityscapes, and then kind of a mess of a slum. And then, yep, oh gosh, look at these perfect designed roads. Everything's moving around in such a comfortable way, a lot more green space. And then when you go on the other side of the city, not as well organized. And then, yeah, here too. So big houses, shacks. And what kind of world do you want to live in, kids? You decide when you do urban planning. All right, that's it for Brown. Peace out.